Welcome to Physical Computing with the Microbit Lesson 4. In this video, we're going to explore how we can use the buttons that are located on the microbit. Once we understand the values that are returned by pressing the buttons, we can make appropriate decisions to determine some other outcome. In order to appreciate the values that we need to use, we will learn how to use the console that's built into the Mu editor in order to explore the values that are produced by pressing the buttons. So let's get to it. All right, so I got our basic physical computing loop. We've imported the library, we got our while true, and we got our sleep 100. So let's go ahead and type in the word print, which is just a Python command. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at button A, and we're going to check to see if it is pressed. So the microbit library has two variables, one that's button A and one that's button B, appropriate for the left and right buttons. And is pressed simply returns whether the button is pressed or not. So let's take a look at both these buttons. Button B is pressed. Now what you're seeing here is a very common thing to do when you're first exploring components in physical computing. You got to appreciate the values that are returned by these buttons when they're pressed. Now, in order to, let me go ahead and flash it first. In order to be able to see the outcome of the print doesn't display to the LEDs. That's the display.scroll, which we could have used. But I also want you to appreciate that there is a console built into the Mu editor, and that's this one right here, the REPL. So that brings up this console that we can then explore values where, it's not necessarily meant for the user, it's meant for us as a programmer. It's just to appreciate what's going on in our program. So let me go ahead and reset it. And what you see down here are the values false and false. False for if button A is pressed, and false if button B is pressed. Right now I'm not pressing any buttons. So I'm going to press button A, and notice that the first value changed from false to true because I'm pressing the left button. I'm going to let go. They both go back to false. Now I'm going to press the right button. Now it's false true because button B is pressed. Now I can honestly actually also press both buttons, and now they're both pressed. So now we can kind of appreciate all the different ways that these buttons can exist. Not being pressed, the left one being pressed, the right one being pressed, or both being pressed. So we can use that information to create some if statements. So we're going to say if button A is pressed, let's display a message on the screen. So let's say display scroll of ouch. And what you'll notice here is we made a change to our code. And at this point, I can actually comment this one out. In order for us to get the ability to flash a new program, we have to close the console out. In order to close the console out, you simply click on the REPL button again, and then we can flash. All right, so I'm going to go back to our camera. I'm going to hit the reset button, and I want you to appreciate nothing's scrolling on the screen. Nothing's scrolling on the screen because our if statement says if button A is pressed. All right, so let's go ahead and press it. So now that I'm pressing button A, the message is scrolling. The minute I let it go, it stops scrolling. Now we can do the same thing with button B. And let me show that to you. And let's go ahead and flash it again. Let's go ahead and reset it. And just to prove to you, I'm going to press button A, nothing happens. Because the if statement is saying if button B is pressed. So let's press button B. And now we got the words ouch to pop up again. Now we saw another combination which was, what if we press both buttons? So for that, we can use our logical operator of AND to check to see if button B is pressed and if button A is pressed. Now I want you to hear how that sounds. That sounds very natural that we have to be able to press both buttons in order to get the message to pop out. All right, so I flashed the program. Let's reset it. I'm going to press button A. Nothing happens. I'm going to press button B. Nothing happens. Because the if statement says button B is pressed and button A is pressed. That means I got to press both buttons. And there's our message. Again, not to make this into a full review of how logical operators work, but again, the AND operator works in such a way that both the left side of the condition and the right side of conditions have to be met in order for the whole condition to be met. Now, if you're familiar with logical operators, there's also the OR operator. Now, the OR operator works a little bit different. What this is saying that whether either button B is pressed or if button A is pressed. So as long as you press one of the buttons, we should get the word ouch to pop up. All right, so I flashed it. Let's go ahead and reset it. And let's try button A. All right, we got the words ouch to pop up. I'm gonna let it go. Now I'm gonna try button B. So again, that's another nice use of logical operators where, we really don't care which button is pressed as long as one of them is pressed. Now, the other thing to note with the OR operator and working with buttons is that I could conceivably press both buttons. Again, there's nothing saying I don't press both buttons. The only thing that the OR operator cares about is that at least one of the buttons is pressed. And we could definitely press both of them. All right, so I want to share with you one more quote unquote button that's available on the version 2 of the Microbits. And that has to do with, and I'm going to comment out these two lines. Oops, what happened there? And let's go back to our print as well. And if I'm not mistaken, it's print 0. I'm going to take a quick look at my notes. Actually, I might as well just do it like this. Pin logo. All right. So if you look real close, I'm going to try to bring my microbit a little closer. So notice that there's a little like gold extended circle here. I don't even want to call it an oval because how it's shaped. That's somewhat copper plated. You can actually touch that. It'll be able to detect if you've touched that particular piece of metal. So let's use our console to kind of explore what that looks like. And hopefully you can appreciate the values that you're going to see because it works identical to the buttons. Did I not flash it? There we go. Let's go ahead and reset it. All right, so we can see here, I'm not touching that little metal plated circle, just for lack of a better name for it. But now I'm going to go ahead and press it. And notice that it turns true. Now again, this isn't a button, but it works like a button. It's a capacitive touchpad where it can sense if it's being touched. So we can do something similar to that. We can create an if statement that says if the pin logo is touched, and maybe we could do something else. Let's display show of image dot happy. We'll display a happy image. And again, just a review of anytime you turn on the console, in order for you to flash a new program, you have to close out the console and then flash it. Make sure that it pops up here. And let's go ahead and reset it. So nothing's displayed. But when I touch that pin logo, we get the happy symbol. Now, you'll also notice that the happy symbol doesn't go away. That's because the way the LEDs work is that once the LEDs are turned on, they stay on. So we can easily solve that by simply doing a display dot clear. So let's try that again. Let's flash it. Let's go ahead and reset it. We press it. Get my finger out of the way. Can we do it that way? Yeah, we do it that way. All right, so you see the happy symbol played because I'm touching the logo pin, but once I let go of it, it goes away. And again, if you recall, when I press it, is touched comes back as true. When I'm not pressing it, it's false. So the if statement doesn't work. All right, so let's go back to our presentation. Let's review what we've done. So in this lesson, we saw how we can use the buttons in conjunction with if statements to determine different outcomes. We can also use logical operators to make more complex decisions where, where we have to press both buttons or one or the other. In addition to the traditional buttons, button A and button B, we also saw that we can use the little pin logo, which is the metal I don't want to call it semicircle, the metal circle above the LEDs, which can sense if it's been touched. Again, also along with if statements, we can now make a decision that if the person touched that particular metal capacitive touch, which is called pin logo, we can display something, we can control something, we could play a sound, we could pretty much do whatever we want. When working with new components, we need to appreciate the values that they return. So we saw how we can use the console that's part of the Mu editor to display information for us as the programmer to kind of understand what's going on. Again, the console is not meant for the user, it's meant for us, so we can explore values that are happening in our program. So hopefully you're excited about being able to add some interaction to your microbit, and enjoy.